Welcome to the Speak Pact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Rose, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the Speak Pact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Rose.
Welcome back to Speak Pact. I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. And we have a soldier in the house. I am just looking so forward to diving into his journey from being a Navy SEAL, putting his life on the line for us, to now getting on stages and putting his voice out there to share some of his experiences and the things that he's created out of that experience. So welcome, Phillip, to the stage.
Hey, great to be here.
So this is Phillip Koontz, and I will read some of your background, but you've got a very interesting career. It's gone into some different directions. So you are a Navy SEAL, a combat veteran, but you're also a keynote speaker, and you own Karambit, a knife company. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. You're a business coach and author, and really a sought-after voice in your space. So take me on your journey. First of all, were you a young kid that didn't know what to do with his life, so you went into Navy SEAL, or was that something you knew you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think growing up, I was that kid that was just on the go all the time, just go. And real funny story, even from the time that I was a toddler, my mom would say I was like in my crib and it was time for me to go to sleep, and away I might fall asleep like immediately. And I'd wake up and I'd start jumping in my crib and biting on the bar, and just jumping and biting. And it's like, come on, get me out of here. So I think that's a pretty good depiction of me. I tried to fit in the corporate world, so I started swimming competitively when I was 12. Did a lot of sports before that, but for whatever reason, I was one of the most extroverted people on the planet, and somehow swimming stuck, right? Like in my head, most introverted sport that there could possibly be. So I swam competitively through high school, into college, and then I was like, let me follow the traditional route. So my undergrad, I have my bachelor's in marketing and statistics, was in corporate America for a little while. And I'm like, I was in my early 20s at this time, and it just wasn't for me. It just was not for me. I was kind of stuck in this cubicle, right, all the time. Any of you have watched Office Space? That was totally me, with the TPS reports, showing up with a business suit and tie. And it was, it's great for a lot of people. It just wasn't for me in that season of my life. So I tried corporate America for probably 7 months, 8 months, and then decided, you know what, I'm definitely not getting any younger. And I really had the perspective at that time, and I'm really glad that I did, that I could almost see what life would look like in my mid-40s if I stayed on that path. And I thought, that there's not a lot of satisfaction there. There's not a lot of purpose there. And I'm very patriotic, and a lot of people are surprised to know that in my immediate family, I don't have anyone who's served in the military. Wow. And so for me, I was like, I'm on the go a lot. I want to really push myself. I really want to live for a higher purpose and have a lot of my values kind of tied into what I do on a daily basis. So I decided to join the Navy with the water and the swimming part that made sense. And of course, with the Navy Special Forces, Naval Special Forces, that's the SEALs.
So from there, I know that you had a bit of a journey that actually even led you to seminary in Colorado. And so the leadership training that you received through the military, and then also through seminary, did you see some bridges between the two, or did you get completely different? Did you glean completely different things? Like, did you see some parallels in those two sides of leadership training?
I did. And, people people are kind of scratching their heads when they figure out that I was a pastor. After I got out of the military, I was a contractor after that for a little while, and then was a pastor for about 4 years at the Vineyard Church as a community life pastor. And even today, when people are like, "Wait a minute, hold on a second," kind of like a head tilt, right, scratching their head, like, "Phil, how in the world did you go from a Navy SEAL to a pastor?" Right? I actually had one of my friends that said that's like going from a stripper to a nun. Which, yeah, is super
I
funny.
wouldn't have said that, but you said
That's
it, so
right.
it's all good.
No, I've heard it all. Trust me. But it makes sense to me that God moved me from the physical fight to the spiritual fight, and
Mm.
between you and me, the battle for our souls and for our eternity is far more costly than any fight that we would experience here in the terrestrial world, right here on this earth and in this lifetime. So it really made a lot of sense to me, and I've seen some really dark places and seen some evilness, evil people, evilness in the world, and I believe that I get spiritual warfare kind of on a whole new level, especially since I've stared evil in the face, and it's something that I think is a tool of the enemy. Not to get too distracted with this down the rabbit trail, but I think a lot of times in our Western culture, the enemy tries to convince people that like angels and demons and this spiritual kind of stuff, like it's all a bunch of hocus pocus. It really doesn't, it's not really real. And that's a brilliant tactic actually from the enemy. You go over to Africa or to other third world nations or anywhere around the world, and you ask them, "Hey, is the spirit? Are there such things, angels and demons, a spiritual realm? Do you see this?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, like we see this all the time. Possessions and different things like that." So it's so for me, it made a lot of sense. Just the spiritual warfare, the spiritual armor that God gives us, how to fight and push against that, and it's really been, since I've been out, one of the things I've clung to as part of my identity, as a part of my purpose in life, again, is to help advance God's kingdom and really push back against that darkness here in the United States.
Okay. Well, thank you for your service in all of those areas because we need them. And when it really comes down to it, it's about who is Phillip Koontz, right? What are his values? Does he believe in country? Does he believe in family? Does he believe in what's right and what's good? Right? And you fought for that in the different realms that you knew how. And through that, I know that you faced adversity. You couldn't have not, and you overcame them, utilizing these leadership tools that you gained along the journey in the classroom and on the battlefield, literally, right?
Yep.
Whichever spiritual battlefield or physical battlefield. So tell me about how now that translated into after being a pastor, right? Why did you continue to want to get your voice out there? What are the things that you were able to accomplish through the power of your voice that you really maybe couldn't do outside of that?
Yeah, that's great. I really fell into the public speaking, fell into the keynote, the main stage. I'm not one of the military members that gets out and says, "Hey, everybody, look at me and how awesome I am, and let me stand up here for an hour and tell you all about all my amazing accomplishments." And I tell people all the time, I put my pants on just like everybody else, right? And there's nothing better about me than about anyone else. However, I have been able to leverage faith and leadership on the platform, on the stage, and it's been an amazing time. I've been a public speaker now for over 10 years, and how I fell into it was my dad. My dad was actually my first client. So my father is a financial advisor in Cincinnati, where I was born and raised, and towards the tail end of Denver Seminary, as I was finishing up getting my master's in leadership, he calls me up out of the blue and says, "Hey, I'd love to fly you out here to Cincinnati and present to some of my clients, do a big client appreciation event." And I'm like, "Sure, like whatever, Dad, that just as long as you pay me," right? And so flew out there. I was nervous. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the first time doing this." Standing in front of people, all these eyeballs staring at me. But there was something that made sense about it. There was something that that at the end of that presentation, I came to a realization of, I think I could actually do this. I think that this is a unique voice, a unique stage, a unique story where I can really be able to help people on a practical level. So I try to do two things. One, I try to strive to be just really, really authentic in my speaking. And the second one is I want to be very practical. If people are leaving the event still scratching their heads, wondering what I said and what I presented, how that applies to their life, in my opinion, that's a big fail, right? I failed them. I want what wakes me up in the morning. Another way to say this is I want to make a positive, lasting impact in the lives of the people who get to hear me, right, on the main stage and podcasts, whatever that might be. So it's been a wild ride, but I never really sought the stage, sought the public speaking kind of platform that I have now, but definitely been blessed by it.
So that was your first taste of really monetizing the power of your voice.
That's right.
I want to dive into that a bit more in a moment, like what that's looked like since then.
Sure.
During the 10 years, because I'm sure it's gone through evolution.
Oh, yeah.
But first and foremost, what is success for you? When you walk into a room or onto a stage, there's people who maybe have never seen you before or never heard you before. What is success when they walk out? What kind of transformation do you hope they will have gleaned by the time they walk out?
Yeah, great question. My hope is that they've written down or clung to at least just one thing that I've said. And success then, to me, is them putting that into practice and becoming a better version of themselves. And you've heard that familiar phrase before. So becoming Phillip 2.0. So it's that's my hope, is that they're paying attention enough that something that I say kind of triggers something, kind of sticks with them, and then success looks like them putting that into practice.
They actually implement it, and it makes a difference.
And I don't like social media, believe it or not. Like, as a matter of fact, I hate social media. If we didn't have social media, I'd be totally fine with that, which is why I kind of suck in the social media realm, right? And that's okay with me. But I don't want to be an influencer. I mean, how many Gen Zers, millennials nowadays are like, oh, YouTuber, an influencer, and I don't want to be an influencer. I want to be an impactor. So there's a big difference there with me. Influencer is rah, 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 feel real good, leave the room, ready to run through a brick wall, and then wake up the next day and fall into the same hurts, habits, and hangups, right? An impact, though, breaks that cycle. An impact really helps people to have that perspective of what I need to do next, some of those next steps to then become a better person and break a lot of those habits, break a lot of the areas of their life where they just feel stuck.
I have a feeling you made a good pastor, because there's different there's pastors who want to be your legs. They want to be what you stand on. And then there's pastors who want to help you have stronger legs, right? Want to help you stand stronger. Yeah. So between your service to the country and your service to those people who are really kind of seeking a deeper understanding on a spiritual level, that's probably the one problem. We won't go down this road a whole lot, because I at one point was in full-time ministry myself. And one of the biggest problems that I had with the whole way that is kind of set up is the dependency goes in the wrong places. I think that we were meant to be strong. And I love that you're bringing that to the table.
It's the age old, I'd rather teach someone how to fish than just give them a fish every day. Right. Yeah. And I would tell people all the time, I say, look, even as your pastor, please, the worst thing you can do is to put me on a pedestal, because I am a human being and I am fallible and I make mistakes. And as soon as people put pastors or spiritual leaders on this pedestal and elevate them, and then they watch them fail and they watch them sometimes crash and burn, they have it's very easy then to go down that road of then almost blaming God. It's like, oh, this disappointment in this leader, this disappointment in this pastor, spiritual leader. And if something happens and you get hurt specifically by them, a lot of times they personalize that, and then they turn that, almost project that towards God. And God's like, that didn't have anything to do with me. That's free will. That's agency. Like, that's just man being men and women. That's just humanity's fallen state, so.
Well, and there's a through line in that. I think in human nature, we just want to be given the answers and be pointed in the right direction and have somebody kind of hold our hands. That's our first instinct until we realize, no, this is a journey I can only travel alone, right? This is my journey. I get to pick who's on the journey. I get to pick the choices I make. And I think that if the average person, especially young people, can understand there's no thought leader, there's no athlete, there's no pastor, there's no icon, there's no politician that's going to save the day. It's you and me.
Yep.
And we've got to have our strong legs, and we have to have our strong voices, which is my space, right? And step into it, because only we can. And collectively, we can make that bigger impact and that bigger difference. So what a powerful message. So good. So let's talk money.
Right.
So you got that first check from your dad's company.
It wasn't much, by the way.
But it was the light, right? It was that it ignited something in you. So take us from there.
Yeah. So I think in the beginning of my speaking career, and I would suggest and give this advice to anyone who wants to be a speaker, have their voice out there. I did a lot of free engagements, right? So I was showed up to like nursing homes, showed up to the Rotary clubs, showed up to the VFW. And I'm like, let me just share my story. Let me get this out there. And the more I would practice, the more I felt comfortable, the more I'm like, okay, I need to tweak this, tweak that, So I was really able to really formulate my voice, if you will, really able to just kind of tweak my presentation style. Like, let me add some humor in here. Let me tell this story this way, that sort of thing. So just little minor tweaks here and there to really help me to capture the audience and keep them engaged. But I was a lot there. So I did a lot of free gigs. I did a lot of free speaking engagements where I just came in and practiced. And that's
it's
hard.
A brilliant strategy. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and it's hard because, as I'm sure you would agree, we live in a microwave culture, meaning we want to put the food in and in 30 seconds, boom, it's done, and eat it and move on to the next thing, rather than this crock pot mentality, right, of patience, of waiting, of simmering, and what you get afterwards is so much better. So a lot of the people that I talk to that want to be speakers, or really anything in life, just want to get to the next level. They want it now. They want it next week. What's the quick fix? What's the magic words? Like, what's the, what's the easy equation, so I can just hurry up and do this. And with public speaking, it's not that way. It's a slow burn. It's a crock pot kind of mentality. So when you can wrap your mind around that and really be patient with it, and one of my first goals, and really kind of still one of my goals, is that one gig would always lead to at least one more. Right. So let me, no matter what I get paid, that one speaking engagement, I'd make that impact, and that it would lead to at least one more engagement. And slowly but surely, I built my network, and slowly but surely, I just started getting more and more and more work. But it doesn't come overnight. So that was my
And that is so brilliant. I want to put a thumbtack in this, because this is many speakers, because especially in the Speak Packed audience, we're not talking about somebody who took a weekend course somewhere and, all of a sudden they want to be a international thought leader. We're talking about people who have made significant accomplishments in their space, in their area, and they feel like they've already paid their dues. So they walk into the speaking side of their business model and revenue thinking, okay, I've already paid my dues. I'll get an agent and it's just all going to happen. And you just gave reality there. And I think it's really important, because the speaker life is a pretty darn fabulous life, but it doesn't come easy. It's definitely not going to happen in a microwave. And if you go into the journey understanding that, then you have the grit that you're all about and the tools that you need to really get through maybe those disappointing moments. So there's a couple things I wanted to piggyback on. Number one, yes, one gig should lead to another. that's a given, right? There's different kinds of currencies. Sometimes that's your currency. Sometimes really great B-roll is your currency, right? Sometimes just collecting the data. What did people lean into? Where, when did I start losing them? And they started checking their phones or
100%.
whatever. That you're collecting data not only on them, but also on you. What really excites me up there when I get to talking about it? And I really do feel like I'm making a difference. So as an agent in an agency, I don't have any dissatisfied clients except the ones that give up too soon.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in it for that longer haul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it takes. And if you can just stick it out,
Mm-hmm.
keep getting your voice
Yep.
out there,
Yep.
it's going to happen. So somehow you had that instinct
Mm-hmm.
early on. And that's the most brilliant strategy. Get your voice out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just get it out there.
Yeah. And I think there's a flip side of that coin too. And the flip side of that coin is someone who's accomplished a lot, or maybe even they're like, famous or whatever, like a NFL player, and they're kind of highly sought after. But if you've accomplished a lot, the other side of that coin is your ego, is your hubris, is pride. And a lot of speakers who start out are like, I should get paid X, Y, and Z. And that's the line in the sand that I draw. And there's no wiggle room there. And nonprofits, schools, Boy Scout troops, are you kidding me? Churches, I'm not speaking for free, and I think they really do themselves a disservice, because as you start out, if you pay me $10,000 for a day of speaking, I think, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, if you disagree, but I think that is just as valuable monetarily as getting in front of a room of 50 to 100 COIs, right? People who are influencers, people who are the CEOs, people who are really the decision makers. That is equally as beneficial, speaking for free and getting in front of a lot of people, of good decision makers, high decision makers, COIs, centers of influence, rather than I got to get paid regardless. And if you're not going to pay me, then screw it. I'm going to turn down the gig. Or even a school. I mean, and this goes back to the beginning. I speak to schools and nonprofits all the time, and I waive my fee. And why is that? Because I don't wake up, and what gets me out of bed in the morning is not the dollar, the almighty dollar. It's not getting more money or getting rich. It's making an impact. And you never know a student or a person who's hearing you, how you might change their life for the better. And that, is priceless.
And people can smell it. They can see it. Are you authentic? Do you really care about the audience? Or is it really, are you just there for the check?
Yeah.
People see that, and that translates into what happens to your career going on. I agree with everything you said. I just want to add something. There is a formula, and I think that you organically worked the formula, whether you had foreknowledge of it or not. The initial formula, when you don't have your voice yet, you don't know really what your non-negotiables are yet as a speaker, you don't have an established brand, you haven't been significantly paid to speak, you're still basically figuring it out. No matter what you've accomplished in this world, you still don't have that really core solid brand yet. That's when you quote unquote speak for free, but it's not necessarily it's for free, it's for information. You're speaking for information.
Well said.
Once you have established, this is my message, this is my mission, this is my brand, then even when you speak for free, you still set a price, let's say 15,000, 10,000, 15,000, right, to begin at, to start out. And but if you haven't earned that yet, you really haven't, so what I say is you're locking in the brand. So you still always invoice at the 10,000 or 15,000, and you negotiate the other forms of payment that you and I have talked about, put that in the body, and then whatever their budget is, that's what gets down on the invoice. But what you're locking into the brains of speaker bookers, organizers, because we are all interlinked. We're in the same circles, right? We're in the same organizations. We talk, instead of me saying something to the effect of, oh, you're looking for a military speaker on leadership. Great. You've got to get a hold of Phillip Koontz. He was incredible. And guess what? He's only $5,000. versus now his base rate is $15,000, but he's incredible to work with. Just give him a call and he'll make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go in letting him know, hey, my base rate
Yep.
is 15. I know that you're a nonprofit, so just tell me what your budget is. Let's see what we can do. Or I want to get my foot into your organization. So tell me what your budget is. And then you become not that diva, but the person who is really great to work with,
Mm-hmm.
while not bringing down the power of your brand.
Sure.
So just piggybacking on everything you said.
Yeah. And I always tell people who I'm in negotiations with, I tell them all the time, 100% of the time within the conversation, I say, look, let me make one thing clear. I will always prioritize the relationship over the paycheck.
Hmm.
And so, if we can help, if I can help you by lowering the cost, getting in that budget, but we get to continue to work together throughout the years to come. And if we can establish a great working relationship, and even a lot of times for me, it's friendships too, then I will always prioritize that over, you know what, you're a couple $1,000s off, so you probably better call somebody else.
Mm-hmm. So what started giving you the courage to ask for more and ask for more? Like how was your journey in that?
Well, honestly, some of my friends, other Navy SEALs that are out there, I mean, they're charging 60 grand, per talk or more. And so for me, I'm like, well, maybe I should start charging some more. And I started talking to some of my friends and I'm like, yeah, so I mean, I started pretty low. I started at $1,000, a day. And by the way, and this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I have a daily rate instead of a per talk. And so I think a lot of times people really enjoy that because it allows me to come in, even charge what I want to charge, even though they know they're spending a little bit more, but they get Phillip Koontz for the day rather than just for that 1 hour or hour and a half. And so I'll come in and I'll talk to their kids' sports team, or I'll talk to, another group of clients, whoever that might be. So, I have a daily rate. But one of the things that really gave me the confidence is knowing that not only is it my education level, not only is it what I've been through in life as a Navy SEAL and the experience that I've gained from that, but it's also the longevity too that I've been in the industry as well. And so I still have people, that pull me aside and they're like, Phil, you need to be charging more. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. Here's another little tagline that I hang my hat on. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so for those guys that are charging 80, 100,000, I mean, I'm not going to name drop, but there was a Navy SEAL who was a keynote speaker this year for a large company. And he charged $150,000. And I'm like, good on you that you did that. That's awesome that their budget, that they're willing to pay you. But just because you can doesn't necessarily mean that you should. So you have to kind of hold both of those in balance, right? You do have to put the food on the table. I've got 5 kids, right? I know all about food on the table right now. They're all teenagers. And so you have to hold both of those in balance.
You own a grocery store, right?
Yeah, that's right. Where is that sweet spot of how much do I charge? How much am I willing to come off of that price and negotiate? But then also, I am worth this much as well too. And as inflation and as we're, going through different things economically, it also makes sense to raise your prices a little bit as well too, to help offset some of those costs.
And people do value what they pay for on the one side.
That's right.
Also, it can get out of balance. And I think that you need to determine what you're happy with. And at the end of the day, you said it earlier, it's about the impact that you're going to make and the broad amount of reach that you can have, right? And if you're in your golden chair, hanging your hat on all the I will nots, right? I just won't. Then I think that's really going to affect your impact and the experience overall as being a speaker, which is where I was wanting to go next. What has speaking done for, kind of have an idea of what it's done for your career and your direction, but what about your lifestyle and then the business that you've built? I know you've got some different things going on, but you have a knife business, which who doesn't want a knife from a Navy SEAL, right? So talk to me about that. Where would your life be without speaking, and where is it because of speaking?
Yeah. Well, you said it earlier. I mean, being a public speaker it's a great profession. It's a great industry to be in. And one of the ways that I feel the most blessed doing what I do, of course, having the impact, but on the other side of that is the amount of quality time that I get to spend with my family. The reason why I got out of the SEAL teams is it was very easy. It's very simple. It was difficult for me then to make the decision, but I got out for family reasons. As a Navy SEAL, we go through 2-year cycles. And of those 2 years, what is that, 730 days, I think, something like that. We were gone about 540 of those days in our
Wow.
2-year cycles. And so I
That's
tell
like
people,
10 years in the life of a child,
oh,
right?
I know. And being a great team guy, being a great Navy SEAL and a great dad, it's like oil and water. I say it all the time. They just don't mix. You can't do both extremely well. Something is going to have to suffer. And oftentimes in the military, it's the family that ends up suffering. And so I had the opportunity to get out at the end of 2009 with an honorable discharge, and I chose to take that opportunity to put my family first, because I wanted to be that dad that showed up to birthday parties and baseball practices and ballet recitals and all of it. So it was a hard decision. And between you and me, and I guess the rest of the audience too, is even today, I struggle with a lot of guilt of not doing enough, of not going on enough missions or enough deployments or, time in service. So that's just a cross that I have to bear, at times. And I don't know any other Navy SEAL that gets out who's like, yeah, I did enough. It's
Probably
kind
has
of
a lot to
common.
do with why a lot of military servicemen have issues with depression and
That's right. Well, and
that guilt.
yeah, I had a bit of an identity crisis when I got out too. I'm like, holy crap, my identity, I didn't realize how embedded my identity was in being a Navy SEAL during the time that I spent there in the Navy. And I got out, and I'm like, I'm no longer a SEAL. And I was a contractor for a while, right? So I was still in the military and doing sensitive site exploitation on Fort Bragg with the Green Beret at the joint schoolhouse, the John F. Kennedy Schoolhouse. So I was doing that, but even that, it's like, I'm not still in the fight, if that makes sense. I'm not still, in it. And that was hard for me. That was hard for me to really kind of come to terms with. And I did. I struggled with, who am I now? And I think my faith really helped ground me in the midst of that. And that was very helpful to have a strong faith as a foundation. But it was challenging.
I bet. Well, all of that culminates into what you've become today and what you continue to evolve into. Now you speak on overcoming adversity, on 3-dimensional leadership, on living free and fearless, on prepared for the unknown. And those are things that the average of us don't firsthand have the tools and the skills and the tactical ability to approach.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need people with your life experiences to be able to share some of those strategies that you developed for survival, like you developed because it had to be developed. So tell us a little bit about the knife company. Where does that come in? And by this time, I know a bunch of people in our audience wants to know, who is Phillip Koontz and how can they get a hold of you?
Yep. So I've got a website. So it's not Phillip Koontz, it's Phil.
Okay.
Struggled with that because I spell Philip with 2 L's. So I'm like, I don't want them to put in 1 L and not be able to find me. So it's philkoontz.com. And it's KOONTZ, philkoontz.com. You can get a hold of me there and email me if you like. So that's how you can get a hold of me. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all that stuff. Again, just, love social media. So that's how you can get a hold of me. The knife company, that's a really fun story, and I'll keep it fairly brief. So the Karambit, I'm actually wearing one of my business shirts. So the Karambit knife is a knife that I was introduced to while I was on SEAL Team 10. So while I was in the SEAL teams, was introduced to the Karambit knife, started using it. I was a little bit like, okay, I'm not real sure about this, but started using it. I'm like, wow, this is really a great tool and a great tertiary weapon. So that's what I used in the SEAL teams as my tertiary weapon. So as I first started speaking, one of the things that I thought, hey, this could differentiate myself from other speakers is I would bring in my gear with me. Not all my gear, right? I'd be traveling with 12 suitcases, but a little bit of my gear, my body armor, my helmet, some dummy rounds, to show people what a 9
You
mil
didn't get
5.56.
stopped.
Right. People ask me that, like, how's the airport not stopping you all the time? But I didn't bring guns. I didn't bring live ammunition. So the airport doesn't care then beyond that point. But I would bring in my H gear and just kind of show them, hey, this is some of the stuff that I used. Well, part of the demonstration was my Karambit knife. And I've got it on me right now. Of course I do. I love it. So this was the tertiary weapon that I used in the SEAL team. So I would pull this out, explaining about it. And of course, inevitably, men and women were coming up to me afterwards like, Phil, that's a really cool knife. Like, where can I get one of those? So light bulb goes off in my head, and I'm like, wait a minute. I just need to create like a little knife side hustle here, right? So help offset some of my costs, my low fees. So I did start buying 20 Karambit knives at a time, and I would sell them at my gigs. So I'm doing this for about 5 years. And then in August of 2020, the owner of Karambit Tactical Knives calls me up and he's like, Phil, you've been a great, very valuable, loyal customer over the last 5 years for us. And I just want you to know I'm selling the company. What do you think? And I was like, wow, what an amazing opportunity. And so I called a few of my friends. I got one of my buddies as a business partner and an investor. And he and I have owned and operated Karambit Tactical Knives for the last 2.5-ish years. And it's an e-commerce business. Navy SEALs don't know anything about e-commerce, right? Pastors don't know anything about it. I'm like, what is this world that I'm about to jump into right now? So we've learned a lot drinking through a fire hose the first year, just inventory issues and everything that you could think of, in balancing the books and really growing an e-commerce business. And so it was really cool. It was really cool. And it's been a wild ride for us. Q4, got to say, Q4 is our best time of the year. It's our best quarter because of Christmas, right? So we got a lot of great Christmas deals that are going on right now. So you can find us on karambit.com.
So that's KARAM, like man, BIT.com, Karambit. And we'll definitely put those in the show notes. But for those who are just listening and not seeing your shirt, well, that is a beautiful, actually perfect illustration of a different kind of currency, right? The currency of opportunity. And really, there's nothing like speaking for the currency of opportunity. You already talked about how one opportunity leads to others. You already talked about the friendships that you gain that you may not have ever come across had you not been on those stages. And now a whole company, just by your demo thing that went along with your story, right? Well, first of all, it's perfectly related to your brand, to the brand of who Phillip Koontz is, but also it's a useful item for people to have in their lives. And
when a lot of people look at it and they're like, oh my gosh, like that's terrifying. Like, look at this.
It is pretty terrifying.
It looks like a bear claw, right? Like a raptor claw. Like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, well, it's just like anything else. I'm opening up boxes and cutting food. And I was just separating my kids' Legos the other day, right? They had 2 Lego pieces that were stuck together. Like, Dad, can we have your Karambit? And you pop it out. So it's a great everyday carry, EDC. That's what we say in the knife world. So it's a great, very practical tool, but then it's also great for self-defense as well too. And we've got videos upon videos of self-defense and how you can use it. And we even have trainers, right? So you can buy one and buy a trainer and not worry about cutting yourself or stabbing yourself. So, but it is. I think it's just one of those life skills, like changing a tire, changing the oil, learning how to drive a stick shift, different things. It's like, it's good just to have good awareness with a blade, and to feel comfortable with one, especially in the direction of our world right now and where we're going.
Right.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Well, I love the journey from being a serviceman to then being a pastor to being a corporate guy. I don't know if I'm getting the order right, corporate pastor anyway, and now being a CEO, not only of this company, Karambit, but also Phillip Koontz, when you are a speaker, you become a brand. You almost become like a separate entity of yourself, right? So that is another brand that you're managing as you're getting your voice out there. And with that comes a whole lot of responsibility. Can you speak to the business side of speaking? If you were not treating the brand of Phillip Koontz as a business brand, do you feel like you would be where you are today?
That's a great question. My short answer is no. You want to continually build those two things: the brand awareness and just the brand strength too. So the more you can, like myself, the more you can build that brand with other avenues of your life, I think just the better that your brand will be, the more comprehensive it'll be, and the more reach you will have as well too. So, for example, I speak to the military. I speak to military groups. I speak to law enforcement, FBI, and they're like, yeah, okay, Navy SEAL. Like that's kind of cool, but it's not a big deal to them, right? Because it's like, yeah, it's you're in the military, we're in the military. It's all not the same, but it's a little bit more. It's a different than if I was speaking to corporate America. But for them, it's like, oh, wow, what's that knife? Like, that's really neat, and how do you incorporate that? And tell me more about that. I'm also a life and business coach. I don't even know if you knew that, but
I don't think I did.
yeah, about 5 years ago, I don't know, well, longer than that, about 8 years ago now, someone in the audience, he came up to me, he's like, Phil, I feel just a kindred spirit with you. Do you do any life coaching? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, you need to, and I want to be your first client. And really thankful for Wyatt. And through that, I've developed just a life coaching and executive business coaching model where, again, I'm able to meet with people, obviously on a one-on-one. Again, there's that crock pot versus microwave mentality. I don't do like big, huge group coaching sessions. It's one-on-one. It's like, let's go deep and let's really like simmer. Let's really figure out like what's going on and spend some time. And it's mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial. That's what I love about it, because it's almost like being a paid pastor, right? Being a pastor again, and just not necessarily counseling, but again, giving people tips. So anyways, all that to say, life and business coach as well too. I've allowed that to strengthen my brand, just to give me more opportunities to help people and to make more money as well too.
Well, it goes back to the opportunity currency, right? Had you not been on that stage, Wyatt may not have never knew that there were strategies to deal with some of the things that he was wanting to accomplish in his life. And
right. Yep. So looking for
go ahead.
opportunities to build the brand, right? The
Yeah.
better you can build the brand, the I think the more successful that you'll be. And I don't really want to be a household name. It's like, oh, Phil, do you want to be famous? No, not really. Not, in all
Want to be
honesty.
effective.
Yeah, yeah, and that goes back to that influencer versus the impactor.
Okay. One thing though, so there's being effective, there's being really good at what you do, and prospering at what you do. And in my book, you want to be prosperous enough to need some tax write-offs. And for that reason, you spoke earlier about giving of your talk to certain educational institutions, maybe some nonprofits. If you're starving, it's harder to do that. If you need the tax write-offs, it's a whole lot more to be pretty generous. It's a whole lot easier to be pretty generous in that area. And I don't know why people are afraid of saying that they are doing pretty darn well financially with the power of their voice. There's nothing wrong with that. That is your brand. That's your tool. That's your business. And the better you do, the more good you do, the more good you get to do. And invoice them. The way we deal with it is we invoice just like everybody else. But if it's pro bono, it's shown on the invoice at the end. And that is certainly a tax write-off. I know that's not the reason why you do that, but it's a good reason to. I mean, it's a good solution to a really good problem that you're doing so well that you need to give away of yourself, or it's going to go to the government.
Yeah, right.
And we just
Well,
love how they spend.
yeah, that's right. And a very practical example of what you just said. So I'm an author, and by the way, this goes back to building your brand, right? One of the first things that I was told when I first started the speaking business is you got to write a book, write a book, write a book, write a book. And I had just gotten done with my master's program, and I'm like, I don't want to write another page of anything, right? So, but I was like, all right, I got to suck it up. I got to do it. So I wrote a book. So that's to the side, but I was just ordered some author copies of 500 author copies through Amazon. 279 of those came back misprinted with a big white line on the bottom. So
Darn.
the bleed dimensions were off. So I had the opportunity. Amazon said, hey, just keep them. And I could have sold them, but I was like, you know what? I want to give these away. So there's a prison ministry that's up here. It's kind of like a halfway house up in Denver. It's a prison ministry. And I just gave them the books because they were wanting to buy some books. And I said, you know what, just give that to the guys, coming out and use this as a cool workbook and tool to kind of help kind of get their feet back on the ground. So just looking for opportunities like that to be able to bless other people and to be generous. I think it's karma, right? The Bible says you reap what you sow. So if you put good out, good's going to come back. So
Yeah, and the fruits make the man known.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so interconnected. And I believe that there's not one thing that you do or don't do that doesn't have an effect.
That's right. Yep.
Okay. There's just so much real value, real gems in our talk today. And so I'm going to ask for one last gem from you.
Okay.
So you know that this show is Speak Packed. And we are each on our collective journey to make the greatest impact in this world that we can. In my world, that's through the power of your voice. There's a lot of different ways to get that done. So what is one challenge you would give to the Speak Packed audience on something just very practical they can do on a daily basis that can make a greater impact in either their world or maybe even themselves?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the one that makes a greater impact on themselves, because the better we take care of ourselves, the better we'll be able to perform professionally as well too, if you will. So for me, I love discipline. I mean, I don't really love discipline, but like I've incorporated discipline in my life so much that I am a much better person because of it. And so what I would say is do something difficult, do something hard every day. Get outside of your comfort zone, because I think in any profession, once you think, hey, you know what, I've kind of made it at this point, you start to coast, and then you become kind of complacent. So it's coasting. You can become complacent. That complacency leads then to kind of just a laziness and an apathy, and that apathy then leads to atrophy and death, kind of dying on the vine type thing. But if we do something challenging every day, and I'm not saying, you got to do like 1,000 push-ups every day, right? But what about walking the dog around the block one extra time? What about taking the stairs instead of the elevator? What about running an extra mile on the treadmill? What about saying you're sorry? What about writing that letter or that email or having that difficult conversation? So I would just encourage everybody out there, if you want to improve yourself, which will improve every aspect of your life, just like with the life coaching, if you want to improve yourself, do something challenging every day that will get yourself out of your comfort zone. One of the things that I've been doing lately is the last minute of my shower, I turn it as cold as possible. And it sucks, but it's one of the things that I do on a daily basis just to get outside of my comfort zone.
A minute is like 60 whole seconds.
It feels like 10 minutes when you're under the cold water. But so does that make sense? I think pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone helps fight against that laziness and complacency, which leads to atrophy and death. So
that is perfection, really, and so powerful. People can sit around complaining that A, B, and C isn't happening for them because they've allowed themselves to become atrophy, and sometimes for good reason. Sometimes there's, things that have knocked them down that they haven't seen their way back up. But if you just do that small thing every single day, I think that it's in the small reps that make you stronger, not in the big leaps. And that's basically how I'm translating what you're saying. Just whatever small thing you can do every day that pushes the boundaries that you sometimes subconsciously have created for yourself, then you'll never have boundaries.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And that's on a micro level, and then applying just to the speaking world on a macro level is look for little things. Look for those little things that you can do to really help boost your career, whether it's speaking for free, whether it's writing a book. I know that's not small. Whether that's maybe developing another presentation, right? Having multiple presentations in your portfolio to be able to offer someone rather than just your one keynote. Just doing little things here and there make all the difference. Hey, you know what? Sticking around. How many speakers out there, they're like, you're on from 1 to 2 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock hits and they grab their stuff and they head to the airport. What if you stayed for an extra 30 minutes, an hour? What if you stayed for the rest of the day to hang out with the team and build that relationship and to take pictures and tell stories and talk to people?
Brilliant. Yes. Yeah. Phillip Koontz. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. You've brought a lot of wisdom, and I so appreciate the time that you've given to the Speak Pact audience.
Thanks for having me on, A. It's been a great time. Thank you.
It has. All right. And to the Speak Pact audience, if you want to give a little appreciation to Phillip and myself for spending this time with you, share it forward, post it forward. If you found value in this, people who will also find value in this time that Phil and I have spent together today. So post it forward, give us the likes, the loves, all the things, and you will have done your one small thing today. Ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Pact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the Speak Pact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply #SpeakPact.